What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Lazy Rockin' T Ranch. Today, as you can see, we're in the barn. That's because the Ranger couldn't fit in the shop, which is crammed full of junk and is in a dire need of a spring cleaning. But that is a project for another video. Speaking of which, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you can stay up to date on everything I got going on here at the ranch. I've even made it easier for you. See a little razor here, a little click. I appreciate you. Now today we're going to be talking about wheel spacers. Now if you're familiar with wheel spacers, you've probably heard from a friend or friend of a friend, or possibly even witnessed a wheel spacer failure where the wheel comes flying off and insert whatever catastrophic outcome. You particularly hear about this more in the ATV and side-by-side market more than you do your traditional road vehicles. But are they really that bad? That has not been my experience. I've actually had really good success running wheel spacers, and I'll show you a few things that I believe have been key to me being able to run wheel spacers with zero issues. Let's get into it. Now, there's a few reasons why people would run wheel spacers on their vehicle. One of the main reasons I ran them on the Ranger here is because I needed clearance for wider tires and bigger tires. And I'll show you, just for example, the way the control arm setup is, there is no room in here for an extra, for a wider tire. I mean, I got wheel spacers on right now, and I can barely fit, can't even fit 3 fingers in between there. So from the factory, it was way closer, 1.5 inches closer. So there's no way I would have been able to run these taller tires once I put the leveling kit on. You can also sometimes get a little stability by widening out that stance, get rid of some of that side to side, kind of a little bit more stability in corners or turns or what have you, just depending on the application. A lot of the times people just want that wide, meaty kind of trophy truck stance. That's one of the things I really like about it. I love that kind of wide stance. And let's be honest, nobody wants to be driving around in a truck that looks like it skipped leg day. Now, there's a few simple things to do to make sure you run a wheel spacer without any issues. The first thing sounds kind of silly and a little self-explanatory and kind of like, well, duh, but it's picking the right one. Sounds pretty easy. You just look up your lug pattern, order the size that you need. But there is a couple different types. So the main thing that you will see, like your local auto parts store, is these little thin ones. They basically just go over top of your existing lugs. But the problem with that is that it takes up some of the thread that your lug has to bolt onto. I'm just not particularly a fan of these. It just kind of sketches me out. I feel like it can weaken the stud that the lug bolts to. Maybe some applications are probably okay. I'm not saying they're terrible. The other part is, like, there's so much tolerance here. So pretend my finger's the lug. So when you bolt it, it's never sitting perfect. So you won't get a perfect revolution as it spins. It's going to be a little off, if that makes sense. Because there's nothing that like makes sure that it's perfect and you get that nice revolution without it being off to one side or the other. So you can potentially get kind of like a vibration, almost like a tire is out of balance. So you can maybe experience that as well. So just not a big fan of these. Just my opinion. Now, I particularly tend to run this style. These are the bolt-on ones. These are probably the best ones to use. Most of them are like billet aluminum or some similar material. I don't know if they use cast, but they come with a separate set of lugs and studs, and you just bolt it onto your factory lugs like so, and then your wheel bolts to the existing lug that belongs to the spacer, and you get your spacing. Now this is actually for the Razor. I'll do a video on that. Be sure to check that out. Now, in my opinion, the best type of spacer to run are the hub-centric wheel spacers like I have here. These are from Faction Fab, and what hub-centric is, the center bore of the wheel spacer itself is the exact as the outer diameter of your hub on the vehicle. And you also have the hub for the inner part of your wheel as well. So you get this mating surface on the inner bore of your wheel as well here. Now, what that does is those extra mating surfaces helps ensure a nice perfect rotation, and you won't get those vibrations, and it's also for strength. Some people will argue that running a wheel spacer causes premature wheel bearing wear. My food for thought on that is, what's the difference between running a wheel spacer and an aftermarket spaced wheel itself? It's the same thing. All you're doing is just having a second mating surface, which I do understand that argument. Some people think that's a risk. So what I do to prevent any kind of failure due to that, now mounting the wheel spacers, no matter if they're hub centric or not, is very straightforward. You just bolt them onto your existing lugs. Now I use a nice little coating of anti-seize on the backside here when I'm doing this, just in case I ever want to remove these. You will get some rusting and stuff on the mating surface, and they can kind of like seize up there, and you have to like take a hammer to beat them off or something. I just do that just in case. I don't ever foresee that happening, but it's just a preventative thing. I do use Loctite on the wheel spacer lugs only, not the ones for the wheels, only the spacer ones. This is just the Permatex orange. I feel like the blue Loctite is good enough. Now, of course, when you bolt on the wheel spacer, you're going to use your traditional kind of crisscross pattern to make sure you get up there nice and evenly, and you're going to torque to the vehicle wheel spec. That's only what this manufacturer recommends. These are from Faction Fab. I'll try to find the link and put it in the description in the video. They've worked out really well, but again, you want to do that crisscross pattern just like you do whenever you're putting your lugs on for your wheels. But do consult whoever the manufacturer is for the wheel spacer. Some of them may have different specifications. Key thing, I think, where a lot of people mess up with wheel spacers. The first time you apply them, especially aluminum, billet aluminum ones, I don't know, I can't remember exactly, they may make some steel ones or whatever, but I would do this just regardless of the material. After about 100 or so miles, you need to re-torque them. You need to recheck your torque specs because they get a little heat from just the rotation and being attached close to the brakes and all that. That heat does transfer. You'll get some settling with the aluminum, a little bit of flexing and stuff. So after about 100 or so miles, go back and check the torque specs on them. And what I do as a preventative maintenance measure, maybe this is why I've had so much success, is I typically recheck the torque spec every time I get my tires rotated. I've had this Ranger since it was brand new. I think it had just maybe a few thousand miles on it from test drives and stuff, but I pretty much have run the wheel spacers on it the majority of its life, and I have 88,000 miles on this vehicle, and I've had zero problems. No wheel balance issues, no abnormal tire wear, no shimmy, no shakes. That's not normal for the actual vehicle in running an oversized all-terrain tire. So nothing out of the ordinary. Everything has worked out well. Now, you really need to do that if you're running wheel spacers on an ATV or side-by-side application, for sure. They take a lot more of a beating, and a lot of times on those applications, you don't get the option for the hub-centrics. Try as much as possible to run the hub-centrics. In my opinion, they are much, much better, but you don't always get that option in the ATV and side-by-side markets. So going back and checking those wheel specs, basically, maybe every, other ride. I check mine almost every ride. Again, I'll do a video on the wheel spacers I'm going to throw on the RZR. That's just going to be my habit when I'm running them on an ATV or side-by-side, about every ride or every other ride, just because I want to make sure I don't have some kind of failure. But other than that, it's no different than running an aftermarket spaced wheel. All right, that's going to do it for us today, guys. As always, I appreciate y'all coming and hanging out with me here at the Lazy Rockin' T Ranch and just seeing what I'm getting into. Now, if you enjoy this sort of content, feel free to hit that subscribe button, give it a like, give it a share. I appreciate all the support, and I will catch you guys next time.